What's going on? It's Mr. Billy. It's loud as hell in here, but you should be listening to Card Subject to Change.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and never wrong, Nick Bull.
Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast. Episode 150. Unbelievable to think we'd be 150 episodes deep when we started this thing up, CZ, but so glad that we are. Of course, I am your host, never wrong, Nick Bull. I'd be remiss if I did not mention my tag team partner, the co-champ of the For Frequency's Sake podcast network, the one and the only, the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how you doing, bud?
Man, you said it right off the bat. 150 episodes. How did we get here? Awesome. With that,
it doesn't seem like 150. Like it seems like we just started this, but so much has changed in wrestling. I think the first show we ever did, and you'll know this better than me. Your mind's a little sharper than mine, I would think. We reviewed SummerSlam. Was it 2022?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What a crazy. How much has changed in wrestling since then? Just the whole landscape of the product itself, the whole landscape of wrestling has changed so much, and we're glad that you've been along with us for all those changes. We're so glad you're back here with us for another exciting episode. And I'll let you go ahead and take it over, Wiz, since I cut you off a little bit earlier there.
Hey, that's okay. I'm glad you guys are all joining us here again for another great episode. And I, of course, would feel bad if I didn't at least mention our sponsors right off the top. We are grateful to be powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and, of course, protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. And we've got a guest coming into the studio that we've had on before, but only briefly. If you guys remember back in July, we did our Absolute Pro Wrestling pre-show podcast party up in Waterloo, Iowa. We'll be back doing that, or we'll talk about that a little later. We're approaching the second one here in October in just a couple of weeks, but joining us back in the actual studio for a long-form interview, I am happy to welcome in the Heretic himself, Damien Saint. Damien, how are you today, sir?
Hanging in there. How about you guys?
Doing great, man. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Just taking time out of my night. It's a beautiful night on Sunday, and here
I guess technically you're not a first-time guest, but it's the first time being in the studio, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you what I ask all our first-time guests in the studio, is why professional wrestling? What got you hooked? Why are you involved? And why do you continue to be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just start from, like, the beginning. Obviously, like, when we were kids, we all enjoyed watching this stuff, right? I mean, like, let's be honest. Evolution 2003, when they all formed that faction, it's just that whole era there that just kind of popped for me. Spike TV, everything's kind of, back and forth with the Attitude Era and, like, getting into the New Age era, of course, just being the Ruthless Aggression era, of course. And I think that just, like, that spoke to me. Everything about that era spoke to me. And I think the reason why I continue to be involved is just because, truthfully, we're telling stories, man. Like, we're telling stories. We're giving it everything we've got, putting our bodies on the line every single day to make sure people are going home entertained. And at the end of the day, that's just what I love doing, just entertaining people and just taking care of people. So it's what I do for a living outside. We've all talked about it before on the podcast that I work at Aldi as my shoot, and obviously pulling back the curtain a little bit by saying that, but that's truthfully, like, I just love taking care of people and knowing that people enjoy what they see. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to spin off of that a little bit. You talk about, good storytelling.
Yep.
Usually at this point, I would ask, if there's a particular moment or a particular epiphany for you that got you to say, I want to do this? But I'm going to spin it a little bit since we're talking about stories.
Yeah.
Is there a particular storyline that you watched that you said, well, I want to be a part of that and I want to do something just like that?
I would say if you could remember Edge versus John Cena for the longest time, that always resonated.
Yes.
06 era portion of that storyline where he's throwing the title in the river, beating the crap out of his dad. You know what I mean? Like that was like, wow, they're like going for it. He's literally in his home. Like, this is kind of wild. Like, remember when Stone Cold, or, that segment where the gun got pulled on TV, you know what I mean? Like with
Pillman and Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Like, they were doing some wild crap, but even then they still extended it that far out to 06, 07, 08, where they brought ECW back in. And I think just like Edge and John Cena always had, and I don't know, I have always been told that my facial expressions remind people of Edge and remind people of hey, you're bringing me back to when I watched Edge on TV, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And he was one of my favorite wrestlers. So being able to hear that and put that forward, I think that's a big portion of the reason why, I keep doing this, is because I'm able to tell a story with my face. And that always goes back to John Cena and Edge, because he always has the best facial expressions of when he's losing, he's like, oh my God, or just going through a table, putting his body on the line. And I think that I'm pretty good about, giving my all, no matter who's in the ring with me. So I think that just knowing that Edge was able to do that for John Cena of all people, obviously is the greatest of all time. So it's kind of why I keep doing it.
That story had a lot of good memories, but I always gravitate towards the very beginning of their rivalry. You're sitting at New Year's Revolution.
Yeah.
The cell is coming up, bloody Cena in the middle of the ring. Out comes Mr. McMahon. Oh, no, your night's not over yet.
Yeah.
And the cash in. That moment stands out as one of my favorite memories in all of wrestling.
Oh, 100%. And you can kind of correlate it a little bit with what's going on with me and another person, maybe wait to speak his name, but you kind of had that same moment this past few months ago, not literally the exact same, but you still have the blood, you still have the suitcase. So it all happens for you can. That's what's great about wrestling, is being subjective and being able to tell your story and, go back full force and full swing. And you're always going to have a rival and you're always going to be able to go back to it. So there it is.
The reason I love doing this show, I love having people come in here and talk about an instant in wrestling they loved. And then, man, I love piggybacking off it. I mean, I think Edge is Cena's greatest rival.
Oh, 100%.
I wish Edge would be the one to retire Cena. That's probably not going to happen, knowing that Edge is with another company right now.
Yep.
But Edge really came into his own as the rated R superstar. And I think you got to give a bulk of that credit to Cena fanning that flame, being his rival during that time. Unbelievable. I mean, Edge broke out of the mold, in my opinion, during that time. He really separated himself. When he was the Edge single star before, he was always, connected to Christian in that tag team. But man, the ball got rolling when he turned into the rated R superstar. Oh. And boom, it was a whole new ball game.
Yep. I can't agree with you more. And like I said, I think you see that, the first Intercontinental Championship run, and then he just starts to finally break out of this little shell. You know what I mean? And it just was little by little. And it's kind of the same thing with me in independent wrestling, and not to bring it in and correlate it to myself, but I mean, truthfully, that's kind of what's happening right now with my character, is that I'm starting to break out of this little mold, and people are starting to finally see what it's worth to, pay the money to watch Damien wrestle certain people. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I don't know, I'm privileged. It's the best way I can put it. I know a lot of heels or bad guys wouldn't say that, but we all are human, right? And deep down, I'm privileged. I'm able to do this, and it's an honor to be able to do this, because it's something I've dreamed of doing as a child, literally as a 6-year-old kid back in the backyard, jumping on a trampoline, slamming pillows down, the
right.
Yep.
Yeah, the mega power, all that. Yeah.
For sure. We're chatting here with Damien Saint on the Card Subject to Change podcast. I want to circle back to something you just said. You're breaking out of the mold. What mold are you breaking out of right now, and what is that going to transform you into?
I think you're going to see the real me. And, you know, they've talked about it. If you've seen the Vince McMahon, you know, the gimmick on Netflix, talk about like it's just a version of yourself turned up to 11, right? You know, they all
Correct.
talk about every
Correct.
wrestler says this. Okay. I feel like I was really trying to hone in on something that I necessarily wasn't grasping. Like I couldn't figure out why, you know what I mean? And like, I think that there's something there right now that's like, okay, this is really picking up some steam. Like, what's heresy, right? Like heretic, it's being a believer in something. And truth be told, this is really all I have. So like I've said that before to like Jared Thumb and like JT Energy and those guys that have everything outside of this, that they have a life and they have everything. But like, this is all I've got other than my job. Like, this is it. And this is all I want. Like, I want to be the supreme leader and emperor per se of Central Empire or wherever I go. Absolute Pro, EWA. You can name every single promotion, even if it's a backyard promotion, you know, doesn't really matter. I want to rule and I want to reign, and being the king of something, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and taking over and people knowing that it's me and that and people are going to piggyback off what I'm doing for them emotionally, physically, and mentally. I mean, that's what we're doing. Like I said, it's a subjective thing and people can read it however you want. And I like to tell deeper stories than what you can possibly imagine because wrestling fans are smart. I mean, they really are. So like, let's get as deep as we possibly can. And I want to make it complicated enough for them to want to dig deeper, like a sacrilegious novel, like quite literally just page by page. You have to read word by word. Otherwise you're not going to understand it. I don't think a lot of people want to take that time as wrestlers, not knocking anybody by any means, but they want to make it easy and quick. It's like, nah, like let's get into it. Like, let's dive deep into it, like into the deep end. You're 4 years old and you're learning how to swim. I'm going to throw you off the diving board anyway without a life jacket. We're going to go for it. Someone's going to save you, but you're going to have to learn how to save yourself. So read it and just understand it, you know?
I love that.
I do too. I like that approach. I wanted to throw this out there. It just popped in my head. You know, I think everybody's, you know, if you're a wrestler, your dreams to make it one of the big companies and get signed. Let's push that to a side a little bit. I think the beauty and the glory of independent wrestling is kind of what you just said, of how you can control your character more so than you would at those other places. Of course, you got storylines, stuff you got to follow. I get that. But for the most part, you control yourself. You control how you're portrayed. You control how you act. I think of Matt Cardona and what he's done. Everybody's like, why isn't he signed with WWE? Why isn't he signed with AEW? And I've heard him say in interviews, I'm being the best version of I'm being myself and completely have control over myself. And that's got to be a great feeling to have all that control and to dictate the way you want to be portrayed and seen.
100%. And there's stuff on the pipeline too that, like, because obviously we all know that like Central Empire Wrestling is kind of my staple, you know, like that's kind of my future is CEW. I mean, like literally the work is going to be there and it's going to be put in there. And however, you know, I still want to work other places, don't get me wrong, but like Austin Bayless, cannot thank the guy enough, because he's very much so the type of guy that will do anything he would give the shirt off his back, let's be completely honest, to help you in any sort of way he needs to possibly do it. And once again, not heel talk here. This is real, right? So like, and everything is real that we're doing. That's the point of this whole thing. Everything that we're doing is real. Okay. And whatever in any way that he can do to help us, he's going to do it. And he has a vision for me. I have that vision. I've also seen that vision without him even having to like do it himself. Like, I think we've all come to the consensus that this is the right way to go with the character. So like, we're going to roll with it. And it's beautiful to see. And I think come next year, BCS, a lot of people are going to be surprised at what is going to transpire with my character and what's coming down the pipeline. And I think I think that, how do I put it? It's going to humble some people to see that you can follow your dreams and you can make it happen. No matter how hard you want to work, if you want to work the hardest you possibly can to get to WWE, or you want to be on the independents, because like I'll be honest, like my dream was to be in the WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, whatever I can make it. New Japan. Actually, Japan was kind of the docket, and Manders made it happen. And that's the guy I was rolling around with. So if that tells you anything, it could have happened. But like, here's the thing, man. Like, I love this enough to where like I just want to do it because I want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do it to be famous. Right. I want to do it. I love to do it. Like hindsight, to sum it all up, I want to do this because I just love to do it. And what's better than doing it in front of your mom, or your grandma? My grandma watches me wrestle. That's kind of wild. Like, not a lot of people left that they're in their 30s. So like, it's cool to be able to wrestle in front of my family and be close and friends. And, there's no like, oh, hire me, like, and I'm not the end all be all of the Iowa wrestling promotion. And, but like, I just want to do it because I love it, and just push for it. So I think, like I said, you're going to see something beautiful coming out of this whole entire thing. It's like a bouquet of roses. You start with a single rose and end with 12. And there we are. So here we
go. I want to build off of that a little bit. We're talking about Central Empire Wrestling, and I want to talk more about that a little bit later on. I want to throw back to the last time we had you on when we were in Waterloo. And you were very adamant to say that Damien Saint was not you. It was a different person.
Yep.
That you became a different person.
Yep.
So we're talking about you're building your character now. How much of, if I may use your shoot name, if you're okay with that, yep. How much of Dylan is now coming into Damien Saint? How close are they getting together?
I think if you're at BCS, everything you saw there was authentic. To once again, not to peel back the curtain too much, but a lot of what I did was improv. There was no that was me, 100%, 1000% me emotionally. All the words I used, everything about the person I was facing, all of it. That's how I feel. That's literally what is going on. So we want you to know that like this isn't like just some sort of like put together story, and it's a real beef. You know what I mean? Like, it's there. There's things to be jealous about. There's things that he delivers on his behalf in his real life that I am not able to deliver and have. Does that make sense? So like, yeah, putting that all together and seeing that, it's kind of like a jealousy thing, right? I want all of what you have and I can't have it. And like, you're taking everything for granted, including the fans that are watching you and paid money to see you. Like, and I'm not that type of person. These people need somebody that gives more of a hell. Like, in my opinion, not that I don't think Jared gives a hell, because he's a really great wrestler and I'll give him his roses. Clap, clap, buddy. Like, it's great that you're doing what you're doing and that you're the CEW champion. But I'm telling you right now, the target is on your back and everyone's looking at you. And I know you didn't want to go into this, but it's pretty emotional for me. You can see that I'm getting stressed out here, because I think we all really know who the true heir to the throne is to Storm Thomas. It's not Jared Thumb. It's me, the Heretic. You better believe it, because it's what's coming.
Strong words. Jared, if you're listening,
I know.
Give your response. I know. I'm pretty sure he's one of our listeners right now. If you're watching right now, give us a response in the comments. We'll throw it up here. Which, there he is. I know he says he knows he's got a target on his back. Absolutely.
Here's a big story before we go into another question. Okay, I just want to say something. Obviously, BCS number, what was it? The year before, so 5. BCS 5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's even rewind it back to 3. We had a tag team match, okay, right? And once again, don't want to get too much into this, but I just want to tell this story to show you kind of what happened here. So Jared and I actually were friends before all this ever transpired. We went to Knotfest before that Bridge City Slam 3. We literally went to that show, right? And went to that show. He had every bit of time to pay attention to me and hang out with me and watch the music and kind of take it all in. And like, we both kind of like the same music, everything that we do. We're kind of the same person, right? And we're buddies, like, at this time, best friends, I would say. And, it took me out of it. He had a lot of things going on at that time, emotionally, mentally. in his real life. Like, he had his girlfriend issues, he had some stuff going on at work, and blah blah blah, all this other stuff. And like, who's a man with excuses? Like, I run an Aldi store and I'm still doing this, right? So like, at that point in time, I was still doing that. So I was getting to a point where I'm like, wow, this guy really is just taking everything that's thrown at him for granted. His girlfriend, his job, his everything. He's just, all it is this, and it's just his side of the story, right? So I'm just getting to a point at that point where I'm like, maybe I do need to, you know, put an end to this friendship sort of thing. And that's kind of where you saw that start of it, where Gangrel and I tagged against him and Rory. And at that point, we were kind of like, you know, what more can we do here to, you know, solve this issue? And putting him in the dirt, you know, wasn't obviously the answer, because we did lose that tag team match and Gangrel walked out on me. I was being kind of selfish in that tag team match, if you couldn't remember. But point is, there's a lot of things that have transpired. And going back to that Knot Fest, it just reminded me that you can't really have friends that you can just like rely on and just be there and be in the moment with you and not thinking about other things. And the friendship just kind of was rotted there, you know? And ever since then, I just didn't look at him the same, you know?
Understandable. And I was not at Bridge City 5. I'll admit that. I wish I had been.
You should have been.
That I should have been, because from everything I've heard, you and Jared had the match of the night there. I was front row and center for Bridge City 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what anybody says. You guys had the match of the night that night too. That match blew me away. You guys put on a hell of a show, and wow. I don't know. I can't say anymore. I can't say enough good things about the two of you in the ring and the way that was put together. And I know I got some good pictures of the two of you. I sent you one of them, one of my favorites. When you got cut open and the blood dripping down, you were right in my face.
I think it's on that side, right? There's a scar.
Yeah, well, we see it.
Yeah. The dude that put a scar on my face. Yeah, Jared, I know you're listening, and just remember that receipts come in several different forms: physically, mentally, emotionally. So just be ready. That's all I'm trying to say. It's like you said, on your back, buddy. So 2 stitches, went to the hospital. It's not a lot of things. You know, I could have just super glued it shut. That was what I was recommended in the back, was to super glue it shut. You know, so I'm like, okay, cool. Let's not do that and get, you know, situation. But no, you know, I wouldn't take it back. That match, probably my best match, probably ever, honestly. And I've had a lot of good matches and opponents. You all know that I faced Strife before. Like, I faced Dan Severn. I faced Manders 4 times. Like, there's a lot of guys that I've had that I'm very lucky. Obviously, once again, I will say I'm humble, but you're right. Jared brings out the best in Damien Saint, all the emotion. And I think, as weird as it's going to sound, once again, you can't have Damien Saint without Jared Thumb, and you can't have Jared Thumb without Damien Saint. At this point, at this juncture in both of our careers, you cannot have just one of them. You have to have both of them simultaneously, wherever you go.
So what you're saying, he is the John Cena to your Edge.
100%. And I'm glad that you brought it full back then. Because
I was going to say every great rivalry has an origin story, and we just heard it.
You did. You 100%. Yeah. And that's why I kind of wanted to give that to you, because it just rubbed me the wrong way, you know? And I put trust into people when they break my trust, or they not necessarily like, you know, stab me in the back. Because I don't think you really stabbed me in the back, really. It's just, we had something cool. You know, we were meshing, and you kind of threw it all away for a girl and for a job and like your dog and whatever you make excuses about, you know. I know that's kind of petty and weird and selfish in a way, but like, hello, like, we were cool. We were cool, bro. And then you kind of just everything all up. So neither here nor there, but now he wants titles and he wants to be the superstar and be this top guy and, you know, the head honcho per se. And I'm quite literally his Lucifer. Like, he has no idea what's going to happen. And I am fully prepared to take down his castle. It's going to happen. it's going to happen in real time. So,
and obviously look out for the huge potential at Bridge City Slam 7 when Austin Bayless announces that one. That's going to be epic, just like the last 2 matches have been. I'm going to take a moment. We're going to take this time to pause, pay some homage to our other network shows, which we'll be back in just a minute here. We are talking with Damien Saint on the Card Subject to Change podcast, and we'll be back in just a moment.
For frequency's sake, has you covered on all things sports. From the squared circle to the hardwood and the gridiron to the speedway, we've got something for everyone. Walk down the aisle with the boys from Card Subject to Change every Sunday as they take a deep dive into everything pro wrestling. Head on over to the hardwood with Doug Green and Watching the W each week for all the news from the WNBA. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your gambling fix? We've got you there. Dan Hancock and Gotham Gambling will help you cover the spread with the Golden Ticket Show. Football more your style? Explore the waters of NFL DFS with DFS Deep Dive with Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan each week. More into the science portion of the game? The Professor John Bush and Dennis Michelson take you into their science lab and dissect your week in the data lab. Need to know who to start last minute? The network's flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, is here in a pinch. The fellas come to you live every football Sunday from 10 to 11:30 Central with the week's best DFS, gambling, and lineup advice. And wrap up your Sundays with Joe Winkle and Nick Brinks as they come to you live with educated ignorance looking at all the day's action. Not enough football on Sunday? Not a problem. Kick your feet up at lunch on Monday and slip into the football lounge with Mark and Dan while they look at the week that was in news, notes, and more. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. Normally at this time, we would toss things over to our good friend, Mr. JT Energy, for his moment of focus. JT is taking some time off this weekend to spend with family, so we wish him well. He will be back with us on the next episode of Card Subject to Change, but that's okay because we have a great guest in the studio. We are sitting here on the Card Subject to Change podcast with Damien Saint. Before we get back into talking with him, I just want to remind you we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. And we're here on the For Frequency's Sake podcast network. So thank you so much for tuning in. Damien, I had a question for you, and I lost my train of thought as I was reading the sponsors. So, Nick, if you have anything to ask, I'll let you while I get my train back on.
I'm not sure what, as a wrestling fan, I love hearing what other guys like to go back and watch, some shows that stick out for them. What is something you like to go back? What's a show you go back and watch, maybe repeatedly because you enjoyed it so much or you took something from it or, hey, it's just a comfort show for you? What's that show you like to watch repeatedly?
Yeah, no. As a weird, you're going to be like, okay, that makes kind of sense. John Cena, CM Punk, Money in the Bank 2011. That one, that specific pay-per-view. So if that's what you're asking, right? That's correct.
Oh, yeah. There's no wrong answer.
General.
There's no wrong answer.
Okay, perfect. Because it's subjective, right? Anyway, so, yeah. I think Money in the Bank, if we're talking pay-per-views or WWE, wrestling, etc., I definitely go back and watch that pay-per-view specifically for that match. Mostly that match only. But even though the card was pretty good. But specifically that match, because I think there was a lot of emotion there as far as hey, I'm taking your title and leaving, there's that whole stipulation and no one thought he was going to do it because he's the biggest underdog,
Right.
And it's seen Punk, he is a punk. So who's going to want us to take their title away from, in Chicago, in his hometown, for God's sake, you know what I mean? And that's it, the emotion behind it, the fans just popping instantly when it happened. It's just glory story tenfold, right? But if you're talking about personal shows, I've been told that I look like Ted Lasso, especially with the mustache, and I watch that frequently, and I love that show because I think Jason Sudeikis is a really good actor and he's very underrated.
Cool.
But yeah, no. Anyway, I just had to spew that out.
No, those are good choices. I mean, you can't go wrong with Ted Lasso, and for sure, 2011 11 Money in the Bank is such a memorable show for so many reasons. Obviously, Punk in Chicago taking the title and leaving the company with it. And, you know, you get that iconic shot of him blowing Vince McMahon a kiss at the end of the show. I mean, it was excellent, dude. That's a great choice. There is no wrong answer for that.
And the build up to it, that whole build up, Summer of Punk, dude, holy crap. Like, talk about, like I said, if you're going to tell an intricate story, you look at that one, because that's probably one of the most intricate, you know, well put together stories. So I watch that one pretty frequently, and I'm a very, very, you know, I'm high on Punk. I think Punk's one of the best wrestlers of all time. As crazy as that might sound, a lot of people might not like that, but I think he is, because he just stands on his word. And I think that's what I'm capable of doing. And I think that's the character, standing upon your word and taking people down one at a time. Whatever it takes to get to the top and be the number one.
Well,
so
you mentioned that Summer of Punk and the Money in the Bank. You're talking about CM Punk. I think wrestling is even that much better when the lines are blurred, when the reel starts bleeding in and you're not sure, are they trying to dupe me here, or is this real? And what am I supposed to believe here? Like, that's when I get invested in a storyline. When the lines get blurred, you got me. I'm ready to see what's next and how this progresses. I think that's why it's not the only reason, but that's a big reason, I think, why that Punk stuff was so successful in that Summer of Punk, that run in 2011 in WWE.
Yeah. 100%. And you look at just recently, the Bloodline, that whole thing, dude, like Roman. I mean, dude, you talk about blurring lines, or even Drew and CM Punk. Like,
I was just going to say,
they're carrying that, dude. They're going into bad blood. They were doing this all the way back in the Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? Like, when he injured him, like, that's crazy. And I agree. It's just, you blur those lines and people think fact, fiction, what's real, what's not. I mean, The Rock, Stone Cold, even if you go all the way back then. I mean, dude, talk about matches that you watch over and over again. You can watch 17 all you know, I will last all the way through that pay-per-view just to watch that match every single
for sure
like pay-per-view. But like, just blurring those lines, I think The Rock and Stone Cold, you know, that whole thing was even crazier, because you never knew. Everyone just want to be number one. And I think that's what you're seeing in real live time between me and Jared, with just a little bit more weapons. But yeah.
Yep. Blurring those lines, you bring up The Rock. I mean, you talk about like what The Rock and Cody did with the build to WrestleMania this past year. And I think there's still more of that down the road. And there'll be more blurring of lines for sure. But you're absolutely right. Like, I think that's when a storyline really takes off, is when you blur the lines. And Punk and Drew have been masters with this storyline. I mean, I've said this before, maybe not on here, but maybe in discussion with friends. You don't have to be a Punk fan. You don't have to be a Drew fan. But what they've done collectively has sucked, I think, the average fan in that doesn't even like either of those two guys, because you want to tune in and just watch two guys beat the shit out of each other, right? So it's done that if you're not a fan of either one of those guys. And I think that's hats off to both those guys, man. They have really done a great job without going, you know, too subordinately over the top to make it believable. I mean, it's so good.
100%. And I think it reminds me, because I used to sit around till about 3 a.m. almost every night at Mander's house watching All Japan. And it reminded me a lot of Misawa and Kobashi. Mm-hmm. Those guys, once again, you say tuning in to watch just two people beating the shit out of each other, dude. I mean, like, that is the epitome of it. I mean, All Japan Pro Wrestling in 93 all the way to like about 98, 99, even 2000-ish area, dude. Like, holy crap. Like, that's kind of what we're starting to see, though. Like, they're starting to, like, carry that torch and utilize that style of wrestling again, you know, and we haven't seen that in a long time in WWE. These guys are really starting to have more, you know, in tune with their storylines. I think it's probably more than it has ever been, because obviously Vince is gone or whatever. But, like, dude, you're right. I mean, Drew and CM Punk beating the absolute, like, obliterating each other. I think that it's emotionally investing, and I love watching it. I cannot wait for Bad Blood. I think it's kind of we haven't seen
I know exactly what you mean. Like, what are they going to do to up the ante in Hell in a Cell? Like, you know, the possibilities are endless. And the appeal to me is seeing what those guys do to push the limits in that match. That's the pay-per-view for me.
Yes, I agree. And there's so many other good matches that are going to be on that card, of course.
Yes,
but
yes.
I'm truthfully being honest here, obviously, and I'll always be honest with you. But that is the reason why I'm watching Bad Blood.
Right, right.
Yes.
Quite literally. So excited for that one. But once again, I think you're seeing that in real time, like I said, with me and Jared in Central Empire Wrestling. Can I just back up a little bit?
Yeah.
Kind of going back to the origin story of Central Empire Wrestling and whatnot and why I got into wrestling. But the reason why I even got an independent BCS number 2 was the first show I ever attended at an independent pro wrestling show. I was a fan, and I showed up and I saw the Snake Pit. It was Duke Cornell and Seto Corbara. And those guys were in a tag team match. Can't remember who they were facing, but I think they won their titles back. And if I remember correctly. But that show specifically, I was sitting in the audience, and there's a picture of me, Zach Takis, and Dylan Koger, 2 of the announcers now, and wrestler that's on top. Well, soon to be on top. But all in one picture, man. I think that's full circle. Like, you're going to see some emotion from that even, you know? You talk about real life. Like, no one came to talk to me in the stands. I made my way to Central Empire Wrestling and, like, paved my own way. Like, no one said, hey, dude, you look like you got it. No one told, you know, Chris Masters that I had nice traps at the time and a pair of biceps and my chest was bulking out. Like, I was lifting heavy, like powerlifting, looking good. I was on a couple different things, you know, or whatever, just some testosterone boosters or whatever. But, like, you know, neither here nor there. But, you know, I think it's pretty cool to see someone that was sitting in the stands, not even what would have been right about where COVID started, so 4 years ago. And now that you're one of the better wrestlers in the Midwest, not saying the best, I'd say one of the better ones, you know, I'm up there, I would feel like. And I think competition-wise, you look at my resume, like, I can definitely say that. And the opportunity being given to me to be on 3 of the 6, pretty wild, you know, going full circle or not. I should be on 4 of the 6, but had some issues down the line, and we all go through them.
Sure.
Said some things I shouldn't have said. I take ownership. Always will. And I think that's my punk side coming out, you know. Just
right.
But hey, like, dude, seriously, like, that's the unwrapping of this gift that I've been given to do this. Like, I am totally in a spot where I'm like, there's no way but up at this point for me. And just can't thank those guys enough for taking me in and allowing me to be a part of such a great show. Literally the biggest show in Iowa, in my opinion. So
I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
Yeah, I just had to go full circle with that. Had to remind you, because I think it's no one really remembers that or knows that about me. Because I trained with Impact Pro Wrestling, and James Jeffries was my trainer. One of the best trainers, if not the best trainer in the state of Iowa. But, you know, I can't ever thank them enough for training me. But I just, going full circle and knowing that, man, it's mind-blowing. Never know where you're going to be in 4 years.
Absolutely. So I want to go back. I want to bring up a word that you've mentioned several times in the last few minutes, and that is emotion. I want you to talk about and take your rivalry with Jared Thumb out of it. Too easy. Talk about a match or a moment that you thought elicited the most emotion from you and from the fans.
Man. Well, let's I'm not going to say a promotion's name because I probably necessarily should not have been working for them, but it is what it is, right? But there was a promotion that I worked for, and we'll just call it promotion. We'll just leave it at that. I was with promotion and being quote unquote bad guy against their good guy, whoever you might call it. I had enough trash thrown at me to probably fill a landfill in the middle of the ring. Not a lot of people know this because it's definitely underground, right? There's not a lot of professional wrestlers that should be in a ring with an underground wrestler or a backyard wrestler. But in this case, this dude, and I'm telling you, is good enough to be a pro wrestler. And I have tried to convince him and probably have convinced him to train to be a wrestler, which coming down the pipeline, hopefully he actually does it. Anyway, there was this point in time where I defeated him for his title. And there was enough emotion there for, once again, the mother of said person to slap me in the face when I was holding the title up. This is not a joke. I'm dead serious. This is on video. Fucking getting slapped, excuse my language. Or, like I said, water bottles being thrown, beer cans being thrown at me. And the wild part of it is I think that really, and not even just to go back to where like the Jared, like you said, too easy with Jared, right? But like I started figuring things out with Jared, but I think that like the worst side that I could possibly find in me, because obviously it's turned up to 11. We talked about it, but I think I found 15 when that trash was thrown at me, because it was real. Like when they were throwing that stuff at me, because I'm at an underground promotion and I'm the pro, I'm getting paid to be here a certain amount. You know what I mean? And like, I shouldn't get harmed. I shouldn't be harmed or touched. And dude, these people were like throwing shit and like hitting me. Like that's wild. I've never had that much heat before. And that, once again, emotion, because I took down their beast. Basically their Brock Lesnar to their Seth Rollins. I took that and I made it, and I flipped it, obviously, because I was the bad guy in that situation. And, the evil one. And I would call it that because the way I won wasn't the most clean way. But, like, it was a hardcore title match. So it's like anything goes. So whatever I got to do.
Are we talking WCW, NWO level, like trash getting thrown in the ring?
Dude,
I was
seriously,
just thinking the same thing.
100%. Like half empty beer cans and like water bottles, like not like this empty, but like halfway full water bottles, man. They'll knock you out if it hits you right. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It hits you in the head with the water coming, momentum, it kills you, man. It could do it. So I think going with that story, because I'll name the guy. His name's Omen Black. Okay. Guy's fantastic. Does fantastic work, and I'll give him his flowers, man, because like he went toe-to-toe with one of the better wrestlers in the Midwest. Like, it's pretty wild. And one of my good friends now. And it's something I'm probably not continuing to do from here on out. It's not that I don't want to work. It's just working certain places, doing that does not mesh. And I didn't want to ruffle feathers. I've already done that enough times. Like, I'm out of that portion of my career. I don't need to be doing that stuff. I want to continue wrestling and don't need to be put on the back burner anymore.
Right.
But to answer your question, I think that moment of seeing people with their, just because I was pissed. Like, I was dead pissed, man. Like, I was going to get hurt, sort of like looking at the promoter being like, hey, like, you need to figure this out. And then I looked at myself in the mirror a little bit mentally, and I'm like, dude, no, this is fantastic. What are you talking about? Like, you literally just got straight heat, and you brought in more fans for them because of it, because the next show, they added another 50 fans. That's wild. Like, not that that's a lot, but that's pretty wild,
Yeah.
Like,
it is.
And shoot here, but like, probably one of my better opponents that I've had too. Like, that's wild. Like, and it's, I got back to the back and I'm like, dude, you did everything that you could possibly do to like put this all in the mold. And I apologize if I like got in your face and said, hey, you need to take care of this situation. But we did exactly what we needed to do right there. Everything that happened in that ring is exactly that needed to happen. And they fucking loved it. And they were just chucking it. Whatever they could find, they were throwing it in the ring, man. So that's where the emotion is, man. And if I can find that again, because I know I'm going to, it's a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. I'm telling you. And I think we all know they're a buddy of mine, Jackson King, new Midwest champion. Congratulations to him. Had a banger of a match with Myron Reed. Congratulations, dude, because like, you better believe in yourself because you're going places. But to take you back off that, we got All Steel Justin Fowler. I went to a show, or Bun Steel, sorry. All Steel, Jay Fowler. Excuse me, sorry. But basically, Heinz. There was a show. I wasn't on the card. Didn't really matter. I was kind of injured at the time anyway. So I pulled out. I actually went to the show, and when I went to go watch, I saw something that I never thought I'd see at an independent wrestling show. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up just a little bit. I think we got you back now.
Yeah, still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know because the camera was going off. But there's the Rugged Pro Show where they had that battle royal, like the Rumble style battle royal, and the fan literally came over the guardrail at the end of the show, and it went viral. Like that whole video went viral. So like, to get that much heat, like that's some crazy shit. And like, I don't think I've seen anything like that, and I don't think I've been to an independent wrestling show where trash gets thrown in the ring. So it's like, you have two of the better dudes in the Midwest wrestling that have done that in the span of a year. Like, there's a lot coming out of the state that a lot of people don't really realize. And you talk about emotion. I think that you have everything you need in all of Iowa wrestling promotions right now. So, but to answer your question, hindsight, that trash being thrown in the ring is definitely my best moment emotionally in the ring, because it was totally real when I got upset.
And you know, you got to look at it as if they're throwing that trash in the ring, if they're making noise to boo you, then you're doing your job.
100%. 100%. And what's really the weird portion for me is, I get cheers and boos, man. People love Damien Saint. They just love Damien. There's nothing other than when I call them big pieces of pig turds, or I tell them they stink like a Tumwa's stupid backyard burial site, whatever, you know, like dead rotting corpses. Like, that's what you all smell like. Like, no matter what I tell them, they still somehow find a way to like Damien. So, like, once again, if we're turning it up to, 15 here or 11 or whatever number you want to say, you're going to see some magic. You're going to see a lot of things you've never seen come from this character and myself before. And emotionally, it's going to grab you. And you're going to want to see this ride. You're going to want to go on the roller coaster that it's going to be. Because that's what it is, man. It's a roller coaster. It goes up and down, sideways, turns, up and down, upside down sometimes. And definitely been upside down a couple times. But, hey, we've always pulled through. So,
I've ridden a lot of roller coasters on my life, but I've never had garbage thrown at me while I'm riding them.
That's fair. By a bird sometimes when you're rolling on a roller coaster. Like, no one's ever throwing anything. But here, how about I just try to make this trash in a trash can? Payback. No, I'm just kidding.
Damien, we are the Card Subject to Change podcast. That being said, every once in a while we do like to play a little fantasy booking with our guests. So we're going to do a little of that before we let you off the hook. And I want to know, obviously, top of your list has got to be Edge. You mentioned CM Punk, but is there anyone, past or present, mainstream or indie, that you have not stepped in the ring with that you would like to have a match with?
Oh, man, several. I always go to Shibata, Katsuyori Shibata. We don't have a lot of the same. There's a couple moves that I utilize of his, and watching him and seeing his emotion and how he goes about things, very underrated wrestler in my opinion. Okay,
I would agree. I would agree with you.
So, dream match number one would probably be Shibata, honestly, and that's Manders and I have always kind of, I always said, hey, if I could ever pick up after anybody, and he's like, you should use this and you should do that, because that's pretty wild, the shit he does, and you kind of have the same gimmick. I'm like, but we kind of rolled with it. I would say number two, and I always go back to this because a lot of people say that I remind them of this person, Malachi Black, Aleister Black.
Okay.
That was because I definitely early in my career I had that kind of look, and just that same style, and we kind of
another very underrated guy, or another not used enough guy. Let's put it that way.
Correct. I agree. Think he's world champion caliber, and they don't.
I do too, man.
Dude, his promo packages are fucking mint. Excuse my language again. I don't know if I can.
That's all right, man. That's all right.
But mint, like mint. And you remember when Shinsuke Nakamura kind of started doing his video packages? Like, that's what it reminded me of, was like, that's how he's going to get over. And that's how Malachi was getting over. And they just kind of could put a kibosh to it. Like, for what reason? Had the match of the year, in my opinion, with Buddy Murphy. In my opinion, match of the year. And I will say that. I know that's wild. But remember the TLC pay-per-view when he bled, like, really bad because he hit his head on the turnbuckle post?
Yeah.
Hit his head.
I'm trying to think. Was that during the the pandemic? Was that in the Thunderdome?
It was right before that.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, 2019 December, TLC. And that's another one I actually watch repeatedly because, dude, that back and forth, just beating the mother living piss out of each other, and the move sets that they were using, and like the modifications with it all. Like they're taking old school wrestling and putting new school all together and kiboshing it into one. And it's got Japan in it. It's got WWE style stuff in it. Like it's got whatever you want to call it, dude. But like giving them their kudos because like that match was a banger. But I'd say number 3, and probably I'll give you my top 3, but number 3, Finn Balor, because a lot of people obviously talk about Finn and myself as a correlation as well. But dude, let's be real. Like, I've had a lot of dream matches already. Like,
yeah,
Severn, dude, like that's wild, you know? So I'm good. Like, if I don't get another one, I'm good. Like, I'm fine. Like, we'll be all right because I'm humble enough. My humble pie, I've eaten it. I've done what I've needed. So. But definitely top 3 would be those 3 guys.
So I don't know if this is a compliment to you or if he's trying to get you some heat, but your friend Jared chimed in, wants to see you go up against Moxley.
Definitely would do that too. Never actually really thought about that, but like that's kind of, if you think about it, and a lot of people might disagree with me here, so take it as you will. But I see him as kind of a modern day Stone Cold a little bit.
Okay.
Just not as boisterous. Definitely could talk a little bit more, I would think, but I would see that. I think that there's some correlation there, and there would be I think something good with chemistry come out of that. I would agree. And I don't necessarily agree with him on a lot of things, but I'll agree with him on that. Sure. You know who I see him face? I'd like to see him get mudhole stomped by his superhero, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I think we would all tune in for that one. That would be very interesting.
It would be.
Yes.
Be on Steve's side as far as the banger portion of it. Sorry, Jared, but he would definitely stomp a mud hole in your ass, and it would happen. So
I want to ask you one thing here before we kind of wrap up things here at the end. What are you watching, current product? What catches your eye? What are you tuning in for? What do you not miss with the current product, or something that you really dig with the current product that's out there?
Yep. Well, I don't watch AEW all that much. I have my reasons. I don't know. I'm just not into it. So I would say right now, I'm really into the Raw and SmackDown. I'm sticking to my guns with WWE stuff because they've got the better stories right now. And the story in particular that I'm watching, I think everyone else can agree that the Cody Rhodes saga that continues to go on, I think he's the next John Cena. I mean, probably going to be the best babyface we've ever seen. Like, let's be real, man. He still gets pops every single time he walks out. And it's something you don't find in a lot of babyfaces anymore now. You have to find that one person in particular that you can ride a horse on, right? And he's the horse. He's the flag bearer right now, man. Like, truthfully, he is the guy. I think him and Roman going back at it at some point, we're going to see that, and I can't wait. Number 3. But the bloodline whole thing, that whole gimmick, that whole shebang that we got going on, I'm paying attention to that. And the Terror Twins with Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. I think that's great. I think all of that's fantastic. And I've seen like AI imaging and like people putting on like match cards with who has custody against Dom. Or Dom, dude. Like, I think that would be so awesome if they did that full circle. Like, who's gonna have custody of mommy or mommy? You know what I mean? Like,
right, totally,
dude. I think that would be great. So, but those are pretty much the 2 things, other than like obviously Drew. Like we talked about it earlier, Drew and CM Punk. So
right,
but I'm definitely paying attention more to WWE than I ever have been, in a long time. I mean, I would say I sunk my teeth into it back in 2003, sunk my teeth back into it when Batista was becoming a big time thing. Batista was a hero of mine and my brother's. And then I think really I sunk my teeth in when CM Punk started taking over in 11, and then I stopped watching forever, dude. I mean, I stopped watching till about 15, 16. And then the Hardy Boys came back. I was like, perfect. Sounds good. We're good. On again. And then kind of stopped watching again. I know it's weird, man, but you kind of go in spurts. And once I figured out wrestling, that's when I started watching everything. So I let my mind open up. So, yeah, WWE right now, though. Sorry, just keep going on a tangent for you. No worries.
Oh, that's all right, man. That's all
okay.
right.
We love it. We love good stories, and you definitely have had a handful for us. Damien, we're gonna put a bow on this episode in just a couple minutes. Before we do, gotta let the people who are listening and watching know where they can see you coming up in the ring, and where they can find you on social media.
Well, as crazy as this sounds, I'm obviously running my own store at Aldi in Illinois, right? And it's hard to find time, and I'm actually taking a little bit of time off from the wrestling ring. So you can really only see me in CEW, which I think our next show is in February, the 15th. So you'll see me there. However, I am working my magic to try to get back to a few promotions. So we'll see about that. Hopefully Absolute Pro is a thing again. I miss those guys to death. Love every single guy in that locker room. I know that sounds crazy, but, I do miss them a lot. And I miss Madhouse. I want to wrestle there again. I do actually miss my EWA boys. Those guys are always great. So we'll see what we can get done with that. But, right now, you'll see me in February. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok. You can follow me on Facebook. Just look it up. Get you moving on that. Just type Damien Saint. There's really only two of us. If you actually knew that, there's two Damien Saints. Fun fact for you.
Well, we're talking with the better one, I'm sure.
He's actually a nice guy, because my trainer, one of my trainers actually said there can only be one Damien Saint, and I think we have him. And I'm like, dude, I'll just change my name. He's like, no, don't change your name. Don't worry about it. Like, guy was pretty cool about it.
That's cool. That's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, hell yeah.
I'm pretty sure. From what I heard, he was cool with it. So, yeah.
And that's a good thing. That's awesome. And I was obviously not serious when I said that, because I'm sure he's a good guy, like you said. But we are very appreciative of you coming on, talking with us here. This has been a lot of fun. I've had a blast. I can't speak for Nick, but
yeah, you can. Yeah, I had a blast too. It's been great, man. I love cutting it up. Love cutting up wrestling.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this just like you guys are. I'm still a fan. Like, I'm not just a wrestler, but I am a fan of wrestling, regardless of if I'm in the ring or not. I'll still support the boys. I'll support you guys. I watch your guys' stuff, So,
well, thank you.
We appreciate that.
And I appreciate you guys, because I've been wanting to get on, and it's been kind of just all over the place for me. So I appreciate you giving me the time today to come on and talk with you guys. It's been an honor. So
absolutely. Very, very appreciative of you coming on, and feel free anytime you want to come back and just shoot the shit on wrestling. We're not going anywhere. At least I'm not.
Yeah. And I hope to see you guys in February. We're starting to do mall shows now in Oskaloosa. It'd be Oskaloosa at the mall. Big time shows, man. Big things coming around for CEW. Trying to do a little bit of promoting here, if you don't mind. But
no, that's what we want you to do.
I'm telling you, there's going to be room to fit 500 plus people in that building, and we're going to make it happen. So we need more support. So if you guys are seeing anything CEW wise on Facebook, share it, post it, whatever. And I'd say that to everybody on this podcast watching. Like, I'm not even just talking about you guys, but just share the heck out of that stuff, man, because we're doing some big things coming up here in CEW.
And I was at that first mall show, and it is such a unique and fantastic venue. I can't speak highly enough about it. So take the time to go to Oskaloosa and go to the Penn Central Mall, correct? Penn Central is.
Yep.
Take time out of your weekend when there's a Penn Central Mall show for CEW. Well worth it. The venue is amazing, and CEW is amazing as well. I can't speak more highly than I am right now of their work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, gentlemen, that is going to wrap things up for tonight. We have been talking with Damien Saint here on the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. As always, we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, protected by Jared Zook. Country Financial. My partner, Never Wrong, Nick Bull, and I will be back midweek for our secondary show, The Kickout. So look for that on socials. And we will see you next week for Card Subject to Change right back here. So thank you for tuning in and have a great rest of your night.
Thank
Peace
you.
out.